it.
Ladies and gentlemen and Daves.
Hey, what about non-binary raptors?
You're Dave.
I'm not a lady or gentleman, they're called Dave.
I don't know.
Yes, can't have some days.
Our next panel is being presented by Dawn Abigail and Dr. Bob. We all bleed red. This came about because
Talking about red.
the phlebotomy department has rooms down the end of the corridor. They're not here. We wanted them to give us a talk, but that didn't really work. So instead, these brave people are going to think particularly still about the red stuff and the not red stuff.
Hello, as my beautiful assistant put it so well. This is We All Bleed Red, or do we? I am Dawn Abigail, and this is Dr. Bob. As is traditional, I'm going to start with some introductions, talk a bit more about how this talk came about, although Dave's touched on that. We're then going to talk about human blood, the blood that we're all most familiar with, before going on to non-human blood, possibly the sort of blood you're more interested in. So, I'd like to make it clear that I am not a scientist, okay? Not a scientist, not an expert. I think I may be rapidly becoming a blood geek, but so that sort of would fit in here if there is such a thing.
Yes.
I should say this is a talk about blood, so if you are squeamish, this may not be the best one for you, but given what you were all talking about in the last panel, if you can cope with that, I think you'll be fine. Dr. Bob, could you tell us a bit about how you came to be on this panel in terms of what you bring to it?
Oh, not in terms of David said, will you be on a panel?
Well, there's that as well, isn't it? Yes.
And Dave said, will you write a talk? And I went, no, it's 2 weeks from Armadacon and I have to go to another con to do other things, but I'll be on a panel. I used to be a scientist back when I was young, and some of the experiments I did involved collecting animal blood so we could use antibodies from it, so I know a bit about that. I worked on squids and octopuses, which we will touch on later in blood not necessarily being red. And I worked for the BBC Natural History Unit for 23 years, and I've seen all the gory stuff they don't show you on the telly. So that I've seen blood on film and in real life, and I'm a science fiction geek, so I know that I've seen the Star Trek movie where you go, oh, Klingons have a sort of pinkish, purplish blood. That's weird, and so on.
I can imagine you would notice the blood.
Yes. Well, yeah.
So, Dr. Bob is hopefully going to bring some actual science and facts to this, whereas I'm just going to bring enthusiasm and go, oh wow, look at this, isn't it brilliant? As Dave said, the phlebotomy is based here. There's a local hospital and they use some of these rooms as a phlebotomy clinic, which is more difficult to say than you think. So that's one of the reasons that the idea for this panel came about. Also, since February, I have been working for NHS Blood and Transplant. At this point, serious note, I want to make it clear that anything I say today are not the official opinions of NHS Blood and Transplant. It's just me wittering on, so this is not an official talk. There'd probably be less Vulcans in it if it were. So, we're going to start with human blood, and I'm going to start with a slide which illustrates what I do in my day job now. Okay, where am I pointing at this? Aiming at this.
Flop it over.
Give it to your other glove.
You see, I mean, aren't you glad you specialise in biology and not technology? So. Turning it on! Oh wow, that's such a revelation. Ha-ha! So, this is basically what I do in my day job. I go up to random people in the street and go, I want your blood. Sometimes when people see me standing there with an iPad and a big grid and approaching them in public, they go, oh, I know what this is, you're one of those chuggers, you want my money, and I'm like, oh no, I don't want your money. People do sign up to be blood donors, which is great. I have suggested that we could use that as a uniform, but yeah, it was kind of against NHS policy or something like that, I don't know, so we've just got, you know, logos and things on it as usual.
Must be hard to get the trained bats.
Sorry?
Must be hard to get the trained bats.
I think that was probably the deal breaker with it, yeah, you know, the uniform is possible, but the bats, as you say, just too difficult really. So, one of the things I do in order to incentivize people to become blood donors is I offer them a blood type test. So, has any of you, for medical or whatever reasons, done a little finger prick test on your? Yeah. Hemolance, that's the technical term, and in the test that I do, it's 4 blood drops onto what is called an Eldon card, which has been pre-coated with various reagents. Bit of saline solution to reactivate the reagents, and depending on which ones react to your blood will tell me what your blood type is. Yeah? We'll come on to more to blood types in a minute. So, I want to talk about blood components now. And this slide is not the most instructive, I feel, but does have the weird shit factor. Yes. I mean, let's face it, if you cut yourself and that's actually what it looked like, would you not be going, what the hell is that? I mean, technically, when you cut yourself, that is exactly what is coming out.
Was it like that when I cut myself?
It was mainly lots and lots of red stuff. So it's definitely, Dave's blood is definitely red, I can attest to that. So I've seen far more of it than I really wanted to. So, Dr. Bob, could you talk us through what that random shit is? So.
Okay, so red blood cells, you're all familiar with that. It's what carries the oxygen around and make sure you don't asphyxiate and die. What else have we got? Platelets I don't know much about, but they're part of the immune system and they're generally useful. I don't know why no one's asking. No, so purple, the kind of purplish kind of things, or white blood cells, they are definitely part of the immune system. So they go around finding things that shouldn't be in your blood, like bacteria and things, and mugging them. And you'll also dissolve in the actual plasma. There will be a lot of what they call blood-borne antibody, which is going around looking for things that shouldn't be there. Like your COVID vaccine creates lots of antibody. It goes around, finds COVID, and clogs onto it. So COVID, the new disease. I can't believe it's not
strain.
Yeah. So that's a bit of a rubbish.
It is a rubbish diagram, but it does make.
Well, no, it's
a
rubbish explanation.
Well, a rubbish explanation for a
yeah,
rubbish diagram.
but basically that's that your circulatory system is about just shunting stuff around your body. So oxygen from lungs to where it needs to go. Kind of rubbish you don't want anymore from digestive system and kidneys and so on, to get it to where you can get it can exit the body and so on.
This may be a stupid question, because as I said, I'm not an expert, but is that similar in animals? Is that basically the same mix?
Yeah, once animals get above a certain size, so if you get a single cell thing, it doesn't need a circulatory system, because it can just absorb it through the cell surface. Jellyfish, most of them don't have a circulatory system. They're just absorbing all the oxygen and things through their skin and tentacles and things. You get to a certain size, regardless whether you're a plant or an animal, you need a mechanism for shunting stuff into the, you're too big to get into the middle, otherwise it all goes and it dies. So we've got a circulatory system, parts pumping it around. A plant has got, phloem and xylem and is pulling stuff up and so on. You've got to get something into the core of the beastie.
So if creatures are small enough, they don't have blood in effect?
Yeah, they don't have blood.
Okay, excellent. So I'm going to talk about blood types now. As I say, one of the things I do at work is identify people's blood types. And I thought, what images can I use? Because that one's a bit complicated. So what's a nice clear image I can use to explain blood types? What can I use of that? And the answer was, of course, obvious. Donuts. There we go.
Oh, yes.
So I do quite like this work. See, I spent minutes researching this things on the internet, and Dr. Google owes me everything. I like this one because if you think about the type of blood that you have and the reactions you might have if you get the wrong sort of blood, if you have a transfusion, whatever, if you equate that to sort of donuts and what donuts you might like. Well, plain ring run, I mean, if you like a donut, everyone's going to like that. It's got nothing special on it. Some people can tolerate sprinkles, that's fine. Some people like icing, some people like different sorts of icing, some people don't like sprinkles or don't like icing. So to get a bit more technical about it, the plain ring donut is O negative. Oh, O negative, excellent. So you might have heard of people saying they're rhesus positive or rhesus negative. That means that you've either got the rhesus protein or you haven't. And I think that was named because they first identified the rhesus protein in the rhesus monkey, wasn't it? That's the only way, it's the only connection to monkey, but that's why it's known as. So if you have, let's say you need blood, and you are rhesus negative, that's all those top ones, so you don't have the rhesus protein in your blood cells, and we accidentally give you some blood that does have the rhesus protein, your body is going to go, shit, what the hell is this? And get all angsty about it, so that's not a good thing. The O negative, I mean, the lady over here is very special, because everybody can receive O negative blood.
Yeah, same here.
Oh, you are negative as well?
Oh, no.
Oh, brilliant. Get yourself to a donor centre now. I had to try. It's quite dangerous.
Howard, Barry.
Blood?
Yeah,
Point out, that's a whole armful.
There's too much blood in anybody's alcohol stream.
So if you were to be rushed to hospital unconscious and needing blood, they would give you O negative because you would not have a reaction to that. Beyond that, it gets more complicated. I can't remember the exact combinations now because it is complicated. But the A's and the B's also stand for different proteins that you do have on your blood cells. So basically, the ideal thing is if you need blood is, of course, you have blood that has exactly the same sort of proteins, antibodies, and antigens. So you're not going to cause any problems. So that's blood types.
That's the most common system in the world. There are variants. So as well as rhesus positive negative, there's a thing called Duffy positive negative, which is the Duffy variant is mostly in people of African descent because it's about resistance to malaria. And there's a blood, originally they called it blood group K, but they decided that it's not an actual blood group, it's another positive negative thing. And it's really, really rare. But again, you can get reactions to it.
It is. I mean, blood is so complicated.
Yeah.
These are the main ones, but there are subtypes, as you say.
And most of this, regardless, is to do with disease resistance. They have evolved for disease resistance. It's what is it? I can't remember which one it is. You could put where the Black Death killed the most people on the basis of how common blood group O is, I think. And one of the blood groups is much, much better at resisting smallpox than the others are. So all of this is about, kind of where diseases were.
I'm just about to break this lady's heart now. I may be negative.
Yes. Which is very, very rare.
I've had dengue fever
Okay.
and malaria,
Okay.
so I can't donate blood.
Well, I know not everybody can. And someone was asking me, Tracy was asking me earlier, it's like, I want to, but I can't. So, and we do get people who are all keen and that come up to sign up as recruiters, and we have to ask them various screening questions. And because of various conditions, sadly they can't. So if you are one of those lucky people who can, then please do to help the rest of us. So that's a message I should really be getting out to your children and younger people, because the majority of blood donors are aged 45 and over. So you don't have to be an expert to think about what's going to happen 10, 20 years' time. So if you do know any young people, go and push them towards a blood donation centre. So, and thank you for that, because people always, I can come to you in a minute, people always ask, sometimes when I'm doing the blood types, they say, well, what are they for? And I had had an inkling it was to do with disease resistance, but I've never actually had that confirmed.
Most stuff in blood. I mean, I'm not an expert in disease pattern route, and natural medical people do. But there's things like, there's something like, you might have heard of sickle cell anemia, which is resistance to malaria. That's only the most famous one. There's something like over 100 different blood group mutations simply for malaria resistance in humans alone. Chimpanzees will have their own kind of ones. Malaria is that deadly, mucking around with your blood, even though you screw over, a quarter of your children for sickle cell anemia. It's
worth it.
It's worth it. In evolutionary terms, back when we didn't have medical technology, when you were rubbing sticks together to make fire, it's kind of. So a lot of this is about disease resistance.
You had a question or comment then?
You were saying about encouraging young people. What is the youngest that people
You
get
can become a blood donor from the age 18. Thank you.
Which is when I started giving.
Oh, well, thank you very much. So,
I largely now give platelets, but I started when I was 18.
because that's the thing as well, you can give whole blood or plasma or platelets, and they all have their uses. We have another question.
No, it's not a question.
Oh, comment.
You've got to be over a certain weight as well.
You have, I haven't got the full criteria, but you need to be between a certain, because some people, male and female, can be quite petite, so you have to be, it's about blood volume.
Yeah,
they
check and to make sure you're not anemic.
They do, you have to, your iron levels have to be good. That's one thing, you can't be a blood donor if you have low iron levels, sadly. So there's not, is that yourself? So.
I used to give blood, and I've always had low blood pressure, and I was constantly being anemic. I was constantly, my blood pressure was so low they would not get anything out of me. And then I volunteered to the Anthony Nolan Trust that does blood transplant. They did a far more in-depth screening. And they said, no, you had an autoimmune thing when you were in your 20s, we're not touching with barge ball. And I went, I give blood. And they went, you should probably stop doing that.
Oh no. I mean, all of those things are for two reasons. They're for the health of the donor, to make sure it doesn't adversely affect you, but also, of course, for the ultimate patient, and make sure it's safe for them as well. So,
Sorry, one little thing about blood groups. You mentioned the universal donor, the O negative who give to anybody, but I had a relative who was the opposite. I think it was the AB positive.
that's it.
The universal receiver.
Yeah.
They can have anybody's blood,
Yeah.
but they can't give to anybody except another AB positive.
And
She said it caused her great problems when she was in the forces in the war, because of course all the forces had to, unless there was some other reason, to sign up as blood donors, and everywhere she moved to, go and sign up as a blood donor. They won't want me. Go down and sign up as a blood donor. And the person would just take one look at the record and say, go away, no use to us.
Because as you can see, the AB positive has got the two types of proteins and the rhesus positive. So they can have anyone's blood. So we really don't need donors for AB positive, because we can just put anything in them. It's fine. So.
Diesel.
My views are not the official views of the NHS. Now,
I prefer learning myself.
something else that people have asked me about when I've been signing people up is, does your blood type affect your personality? Any comments, Dr. Bolt?
There's an awful lot of genetics and background stuff. Yeah,
I mean, that's basically my understanding, is that
that's definitely not me.
there is no evidence for this whatsoever, but we haven't.
I'm type A.
Yes.
I am none of those things.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I
I mean, this is, I'm not a scientist, but this is not science, this is bollocks.
Is it not better than astrology?
No.
In astrology, you have to work out scientifically where the planets actually were. I mean, I suppose you could say you have to work out what your blood type is, but then you're just making shit up. So, okay.
Organised?
Sure, sir. Leaders, does that mean we
Natural leaders. Well, that's interesting, because in this country, O positive is the most common blood type. So the vast majority of people in this country are natural leaders. I don't quite know how that works.
This explains why nobody follows. And we're
Yeah,
all getting
yeah.
So why have we got all those bloody idiots in Parliament?
They're all out.
Yeah.
Why? They're all
They're
idiots.
no-oh.
No, they'd probably be looking at them.
So moving on from non-science.
Certainly didn't.
The title of this talk is We All Bleed Red. So, we all know our blood is red. Why is our blood red? I mean, my understanding is to do with the iron.
Yeah, hemoglobin in your blood, which is in the red blood cells, it's not in the plasma, that it's got iron atoms in it, and rust is the sort of rusty. Yeah, basically your blood is rusty. It's got iron in combination with oxygen, because iron's
Because the iron, it carries the blood's carrying oxygen around the body, so
Yeah.
that's where you get the iron, that's where you get the oxygen interaction.
it's the whatever you're using is what they call a respiratory pigment, has to be good at grabbing oxygen and preferably good at grabbing carbon dioxide as well, because you've got to carry both. But not so good, it will never let it go. So that your silicon-based life forms, silica's great at grabbing oxygen, it will not bloody let it go. Yeah, so having using a silicon atom as your respiratory pigment, that would not be a good idea.
Was it Fe2 or Fe3?
I can't remember. It's electron donors, and so I'm not very into
Sorry.
I never prepped for chemistry of this, but yeah. So iron is one of the most common ones.
Right.
There's a lot of iron available on the other hand, if you took all the iron from your body and stole it atom by atom, you could only make a nail about that size. Yeah.
It's quite spread out.
It's quite spread out. Yeah.
So if, as we say, we're basically rust, but are we related to this guy?
Yes, we are.
Right, so he's a close relative of ours, apparently.
Didn't you know we evolved from rust?
Oh, did we?
Yeah.
I don't know whether anyone got the rings that Bernard made. They did work out that the iron rings that Bernard made, that Simon made, was the right amount.
The right amount.
Exactly the right amount of iron.
I would say for the meat eaters in the audience as well, different colours of meat, or you've got chicken breast and a different colour for chicken thighs, and a different colour for pork, and a different colour for lamb, and a different colour, and so on. That's how much of the oxygen, it's myoglobin rather than hemoglobin, but it's a very similar compound. So, like pigeon breast are really dark red, because pigeons fly, whereas chickens just walk, so there's not much in chicken breast. If you've ever seen seal meat or whale meat, it is so dark red, it's almost black, because they are diving and the only source of oxygen is whatever they take to feed them. So, you get that. So, so you're not just storing oxygen in your blood, you're storing it in your muscles as well.
So, we've talked about the components of blood and discovered that it's full of weird shit. We've discovered that we are related to the rust monster. But the real question of this talk is this possible? And by this, I don't mean beating up Mr. Tuvok. I tell you one thing that isn't possible. Clearly, talking about blood colours and coming to an SF convention, I wanted a picture of Mr. Spock bleeding green. Do you realise how difficult it is to find? I've no idea why, and I'm sure I've seen him in shows bleed green, but so that's why we've got Mr. Tuvok instead. Sorry?
Patterns of pools, it gets whipped.
I'm sure yeah, but anyway, so we've got Mr. Tuvok. So is this possible? Is it possible to have a humanoid person with green blood? Now I want to sort of take you on the same journey that I went on with this. I was doing the finger prick blood type test with a young student, young person, getting signed up. And he said that he was training to be a doctor, but decided against it and was now training to be a vet. So obviously, as we were talking all things blood, I said, oh, well, vet, doctor, I suppose, and the blood's the same, if nothing else. And he said, well. and what he said to me led to me Googling this image, which I hope it has the same effect on you, which is to go, what the? I mean, what the hell even is that? What is going on
It's
there?
a horseshoe crab. Animals on Earth.
There you go. I mean, that wasn't my reaction. That was, is that a thing? I mean, what actually?
And I've actually had one perched on my head.
Oh, that's horseshoe crab.
A horseshoe crab, yes. Are you sure it wasn't on your face when
Have you, Dr. Bob, could you talk us through this and give me some,
through the-
yeah, what the hell is going on with it?
well, these horseshoe crabs are missing bits because science. So there's its eye.
You want the thingy? Yeah.
Is it got a
It has
laser?
got a little thingy on it, I don't know which way it is.
Which is the laser pointer bit? Which button? There are many buttons. Come on, okay, right. So that's its eye. That's its other eye. This is its carapace, you know, from the back. That bit there is where it pulled its tail off. Its tail would have been down there. Underneath there, its legs will be kind of tucked in and so on. So it's kind of, they're related to trilobites. If you've seen the trilobites in the dealer's room, they're more primitive. So they scut them out on the bottom of the sea and eat things. And they've just stuck a stent of some form into one of the soft bits on the joints so that it's coming down and dripping into the collection bottle.
So that is the horseshoe crab's blood?
That is the horseshoe crab's blood, yeah.
And why, other than making it look really weird, why might they want to do that?
They're collecting proteins, and there's lots of interesting chemicals in the horseshoe crab blood, and they're I can't remember all the applications now. Yeah, they were basically sort of going, yeah, it's like we're going to go to the rainforest and find new chemicals we might be able to cure diseases with it. We're going to harvest the blood, and there's definitely some stuff they're extracting from it. It's easier to make the crabs grow it in the sea than it is to manufacture it, you know, put that atom to that atom at the moment. But when they've cracked the biochemistry, they'll probably make their own without antivenomous? Sorry? Antivenomous? I think so, because they're not, people object to them injecting horses with snake venom and things these days to make antivenoms. So, but there's a lot of research just on interesting chemicals.
Because I wondered if this was, something that doesn't happen anymore, possibly because they invented their fake ones, but apparently not. Apparently licenses in America, at least, to do this sort of thing have increased in recent years.
Yeah, probably because they have a huge migration of the horseshoe crabs onshore to lay into the surf zone in the beach to lay their eggs.
Okay.
So they're easy to collect, and billions of them turn up. Unless they over-harvest, they find a billion will come back then the next year. But
So yes,
spider crab, the main lab here at one point was collecting blood from spider crabs that they trawled from the bottom of the sea. Again, to do, it was not, I don't think it was medical research, it was more biological research on what the hell are these things using in their blood to do stuff with,
So clearly, blood does not just come in red. Look I've got some more details of blood colours here. I quite like this one. So the horseshoe crabs, they're clearly blue. Do they come under that spiders, crustaceans?
Yeah, they're crustaceans. So pointed up my nose. Okay, so this is us. So it says, and the majority of other vertebrates, for those that can't read the teeny writing up
It's
the back.
tiny, but I just think it's a really cool chart.
We use, as mentioned earlier, a molecule called hemoglobin. Heme meaning iron, globin meaning the type of protein that it is. And then over here, spiders, crustaceans, some mollusks, and then bizarrely it says octopus and squid. Octopus and squid are mollusks. There's a lovely octopus. They use hemocyanin, and the word means iron copper because of the strange definition of the word, but it actually it's a copper. There's no iron in there. It's that's called hemoglobin, so they call that hemocyanin, but it's actually entirely copper based. There's no iron in it, and therefore, like the copper sulfate crystals you played with in school, they are blue. The blood is blue. So the squids and octopuses I worked with, it's actually you saw the horseshoe crab and it was bright blue, that's when there's tons of oxygen in it. When there's less oxygen in it, when it's filled with carbon dioxide and so on, the blue colour fades. So the squids I've worked with, freshly killed, you can see the kidneys, because the kidneys are pretty much transparent in them, and you can see a very pale grey blue colour, like dilute copper sulphate. But if you saw a squid down the fish market that's been dead for hours and hours, and got to get and looked at the kidneys, you wouldn't see anything at all. It's all gone colourless. Yeah, so you would think a squid didn't have any blood at all.
So squid blood is colourless, but when it's well oxygenated,
Well, others, you know how
blue.
your venous blood and your arterial blood are slightly different colours red.
Oh, no, I didn't.
Yeah.
Okay, so
one
your main blood and your arterial blood.
Yeah,
slightly different
I mean,
coloured red.
you see some of them look blue and some of them purple through
Yeah,
the skin.
yeah,
That's how much blood how much oxygen they're bound with. So those it fades, the colour fades out from blue to paler blue to almost, I think in some of them it is completely colourless. And then that one, green, some segmented worms. So that's like the ragworms you dig up for bait if you do sea fishing. Some leeches and some marine worms, and that's chlorine. They're lovely.
Chlorocrudrin.
Yeah. So that's just a variant pigment, and the annelid worms and so on split off from the rest of life really long time ago. So all of these are ancient systems.
So they've got no iron. And it's not copper. What is it with green? Well, I mean, do you know? I don't know.
I think it might be. It's iron again, but it's a different system.
Okay.
It's iron, and I've seen I've had ragworms when we were doing experiments on things. So I had some ragworms, and they've got a vein that runs down their back, and it looks like red. It's a vein or an artery. It's red. You can see the blood inside it. And for reasons, we had them in a chamber that had very little oxygen in it. And they're crawling around quite happy because they don't care. They live in anoxic mud. And you could watch the red colour gradually fade out of that thing. So the blood gradually turned, they have greenish kind of skin. So it kind of gradually, all the red disappeared until the blood and thing was almost the same colour as their green skin.
So is the red disappearing because of the change in oxygen level?
Yes, it's
right.
the oxygen, they're using up the oxygen, it's being
Okay.
replaced by carbon dioxide and it's just not there, and it's just,
But it just bonds them, but they just...
eventually it'll bot them. But, it's sort of, they're used to living in hideous anoxic, you've seen estuaries, the tide goes out and there's horrible stinking black sulphurous kind of mud, and they're happily crawling around in this, and there's very little oxygen in that, and then the next tide comes in and they get an influx of water and they go, and so they're fine for, we had them in there, 45 minutes later they didn't care, they were still crawling around, there's no oxygen in this chamber and they're still trumping around, and then what's that last one? For the tiny writing up the back, marine worms, including peanut worms, no idea what that is, penis worms, they're named for their shape.
I am so glad you said that, because when I read this, I thought, no, they don't, there are they?
Yeah,
It's the shape of them.
It's the shape of them, yeah. No, it's not a terrible infection you need to worry about. And brachiopods. Brachiopods basically are little shelled creatures. If you're not an expert, you would see one and go, yeah, it's just a clam or whatever, but they have a completely different physiology and are another ancient lineage. Fossil collectors find lots of brachiopods. They're not very common anymore, apart from in Antarctica, where they go, yay! And they've got, hemerythrin, which is again iron-based.
Ammonia bomb.
Yes, it's got ammonia molecules on it. So it's a protein. So it's got nitrogen bonds in it. But all proteins, that's practically the definition of a protein is it's got nitrogen bonds in it. But they've got iron atoms there as well, and then and so on. So apart purple blood, violet blood is blood, and really, really obscure creatures.
So from that chart, basically Vulcans are descended from segmented worms,
Yeah.
and Klingons come from marine worms.
Yeah, a lot of the segmented worms are also marine worms. So maybe Vulcans are descended from, Klingons are descended from brachiopods. Yeah.
Because I understand that they talk about Vulcan blood being copper-based. So
Yeah,
if-
so that's probably because they knew about this,
Hemocyanin.
which is copper-based. And also there's a lot of blue and green minerals like malachite and azurite and so on have got copper in them.
So if it was copper-based, would it be more blue than green, or depends how oxygenated it
It
is?
depends how oxygenated
Yeah,
it is.
yeah.
Yeah. And also given that we're talking aliens,
Yeah.
it depends whether it's oxygen at all. If they're living in if what they're breathing is hydrogen rather than oxygen or something, then
It could be completely different,
could be
so-
completely different. Yeah.
I mean, I do find this fascinating because I knew there was iron in blood, and you hear about the Vulcan copper-based, but you just think, is that like, you know, in reversing the polarity of the neutron flow, just some nice terms that someone made up, you know, but apparently not. You know, the fact that you have blood based on different minerals or different chemistry is entirely reasonable. So
we see before we drop
Yes,
on,
sure,
there's something
sure.
I forgot to mention when
No,
I was
please
talking
do.
to it. You've got all these red things, and it seems the majority of other vertebrates, and vertebrates are the success story. You know, we've conquered the seas as fish, we've conquered the lands as amphibians and reptiles and mammals and birds and all the rest of it. So we've conquered the science fiction convention as fans. We've won. There's lots of insects and things, but we've won. The success story of the vertebrates might not be the internal skeleton. Obviously, physics, square cube law in certain things, but what the vertebrates have got, and most of the rest of these things don't, are blood-borne antibodies. Our immune system rocks. Insects have got a primitive, given that they've had it for millions of years and it's fine-tuned, similar thing to the blood-borne antibodies, and starfish have sort of got a bit of an immune system like it, but most things don't. We kick the shit out of diseases with what's going on in our blood, and a lot of other things, they're crap at it.
So if a starfish got a cold, or the starfish equivalent, they get a virus, what happens?
In a lot of cases, they're just short-lived and it kills
That's
them.
it. Yeah.
Did you the natural history programs where the thing gets infected by the fungus and then like the ants that climb up it, the zombie ants and so on. There's all sorts of tons of those. So they have those are the ones that given they're insects, have a bit of resistance and it still overwhelms them and kills them. But it doesn't matter because there's like 1,000 other ants in the ant's nest. So it doesn't matter if poor Fred the ant has died of it and so on. So it's they're just not as good at fighting diseases as we are, and therefore it doesn't matter if you're a short-lived thing and that your entire generation cycle only lasts a couple of years.
But starfish can regrow limbs.
Yes, yeah. Well, so can newts. There are some things that can regenerate things. If a starfish gets a wound, you get like lots of white blood cells will cluster around it.
Yeah.
But we've also got as well as white blood cells mugging things.
Yeah.
We've also got the antibodies flowing around in your blood mugging things. That's why you could have a vaccination for COVID in humans. If you decided to go and vaccinate octopuses against COVID, they ain't got that system. They would just go, "Why are you jabbing needles in me, you bastard?"
No vaccination program for octopus.
Right.
Very important.
They must find it hard to sneeze as well.
Yes, yeah.
So what we've learned is don't give an octopus a cold. That's really bad news. So okay, so we're nearly there with what I wanted to share with you. But so we've discovered that human blood is full of weird shit. That you can have different types of coloured blood, that many creatures do not have red blood. The Vulcan blood would be possible. But one last question, is it possible for humans to have green blood? Apparently yes. So this is a story that was, it was a guy in Canada, and it was over various web pages, but all clearly quoting the same example from this guy in Canada. Of course, now I've got a picture of Mr Spock, of course you have. In this case, it was seemed to be due to the patient taking somatropin, which was for migraines, and that affected the blood chemistry, so that when, during surgery, it came out dark green.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, after the, so because sulfur was inhibiting the oxygen carrying. Is that right? Does that make any sense? I don't know.
Yeah, if the hemoglobin can't bind to the oxygen, then yeah.
So you're basically
Patient's
getting
in trouble.
the patient's in trouble. And when he started coming off somatropin, his blood returned to normal. There was no hard-term, long-term effects done. So it is possible for even humans to have green blood. Now I thought that's been quite a lot of talking. So I thought
I was going to.
yeah, please do, yeah.
If people want that, this involves animal experimentation, which I did. So I know some people don't like that, but I can tell people if you're if anyone is a fantasy horror writer, how Hollywood has been getting it wrong with various things to do with blood, because we had animal blood, and in the I know Fiona is fine about it, but but if folk are squeamish about animal experimentation, stick your fingers in your ear now. On the other side of the animal experiment, I had 5 rabbits. 2 of them died for science. 2 of them we smuggled out of the building and nobody was looking, which is against the rules. So we were nice to some of our bunnies and we killed the others. So
that's how COVID came about.
That's how COVID came about. Yes, my secret laboratory with my army of attack squid.
Live action survivors game.
So the first thing that Hollywood gets wrong is I've seen, like, it was an episode of Angel, it was, and he goes to his fridge and he opens it and he reaches in and he pulls out a coffee mug that he's put in the day before that's filled with blood, and it's just glass of wine, and it's got red liquid in it from
as opposed to breaking into plasma.
And I looked at it and went, that's not what the blood from our animals does when you leave it overnight. Because when our experiment, we harvested the blood and we left it in the test tubes or the jars overnight, and all the red cells come down and form a clot at the bottom, and it's sitting there in a glass of straw-coloured liquid, which is the plasma, with a big kind of lump at the bottom. So Angel would have to. It would be like eating a piece of raw liver, in a glass of lemonade, kind of.
That's not the worst for it, Dr. Bob. There's a remake, the remake of The Haunting of Hill House. They turn it into a lunatic asylum rather than Vincent Price, going to give so many people money and whatever. It's absolutely ridiculous, but it's now a lunatic asylum with haunted by lunatics and nurses and doctors and whatever. But one person falls actually into a tank of blood that has sat there for nobody's been in this building for like 30 to 40 years and goes swimming in blood.
Hannibal Lecter, what was the first Hannibal Lecter? Silence of the Lambs, the bit in the garage. Spoilers, I'll get to you in a minute. They go into it and she finds the severed head in the jar, and I think, that's remarkably well preserved for something that's been in a garage for 30 years, because the blood's still red. And then I went, it's supposed to be pickled, is it? Oh, that's remarkably well preserved. That's something that's supposed to be pickled for 30 years or 10 years or whatever. Yes, so at the back.
To be seen.
Just as an aside, really, when I was young, there was this thing about people having blue blood because of an inheritance.
Royalty, yeah.
Is that actually a thing?
Yeah, they're descended from horseshoe crabs, obviously. It's not lizard people at all.
Squid overlords.
I mean, I must say, I've not seen huge quantities of blood, but I've seen hundreds of people's blood, only a few pinpricks of it, and it has all been red. Different shades of red, perhaps. I'm starting to see different shades, but it's all red.
So anyway, for the horror writers in the audience, as I said, some of our experiments involved, we were using antibodies in animal blood to test for, we were immunising rabbits, and other people were using rats, with krill, the little thing that swims around in the Antarctic, so that the animals would produce antibodies against krill in their blood, and then we would take the antibodies and test them against stomach contents of various creatures to see if they'd been eating krill. So I was testing for squid stomachs, someone else was looking at albatross stomachs, and so on and so forth. Especially squid, because the stuff in the stomach, their throat, their brain is here, so they cannot swallow big stuff, because their brain is like a donut with a throat going through the middle, so they chew stuff up really small, so you can't look at
it. Doesn't give them a headache.
Yes, well, sometimes it does, sometimes it pierces the... you can't, like, you know, you could gut a lion and go, oh yes, there's a bit of zebra vertebrae in it, or whatever. You couldn't do that with squid, so we were collecting the blood to do this. Therefore, some of the animals, you just took samples now and then, and some of the animals, we bled them out. So I now know that all that bollocks they do in Hollywood, and are still continuing to do in things like Interview of the Vampire, with, yes, I want all the blood out of this person, I shall just slit their wrist and let it drain into a lovely jar. Bollocks. Because if that happens, that's an extremity. You're starting to lose blood. You're going into shock. Your body stops sending the blood to your extremities, and it pulls it back to save the brain and the internal organs. So, in a minute, Fiona. So, for the rats, which are little, to get as much blood out as possible of them, you don't go anywhere near a rat equivalent of a wrist. You go for the femoral artery. So if you've seen the scene in Black Hawk Down where someone has been shot and it's nicked the femoral artery, you know, that's about a soldier bleeding out because, you know, they can't fix this. That's where you get it from the rats, because they're little, you know. Bigger thing, like our rabbits, and some of our rabbits were New Zealand white, so they're hefty. So anything bigger than that, so vampires who wish to harvest all the blood from a human, because humans are big, you take it direct from the heart. Because the body is desperately pumping it to the heart to save them. So you put a needle direct into the heart and you pump it out that way, and that's, you get the maximum. And if you do that, you actually see the thing where the lips turn really blue, because it's going from everywhere. So it's, sorry to the squeamish people, but yes, for the horror writers, wrists, no, heart. You take it direct from the heart, which means the hero has very, very short time to save someone. You know, you can't kind of, you know, oh, Aunt Agatha has been kidnapped on Monday and they're slowly draining blood for her. I shall rescue her on Tuesday. It's 5 to 3 now. You've got 5 minutes, possibly less, and she'll be dead.
But does that, I'm just fascinated by the horror aspects now, does that mean the vampire would have to suck really quickly as well, or would it just go everywhere? Or?
Well, if you're doing it for storage, you know, if the blood transfusion service turned evil, they're not the official people in dark alleyways, you would just stuff the heart into a blood bag, right, and then you know, and then how long does blood store?
It depends. The various components of blood store for a different amount of time. So whole blood is just over a month.
Okay, so then the vampires they've got a month to eat.
Oh, okay, so yeah.
But wouldn't a vampire inject an anticoagulant? Wouldn't that?
Oh, maybe they have that on their
like
hand.
leeches in the saliva. Yeah, it's still, if a leech bites you there, your body will still go into shock and it will still stop the flow, you know, kind of thing. It can tell when the blood pressure is dropping, even though the wound will not be clotting, the blood pressure will still be dropping. Yeah. Fiona?
I would think that short of having an evil phlebotomy service at your disposal, the best thing to do would be to hang somebody up by their feet and slit their throat.
Get a lot, but you're probably still better to go for the heart.
Oh
Because,
yeah, but if you don't have the kit,
Yes, if you don't have the kit.
if you're a primitive vampire living in the backwoods, you don't have access to these supplies.
Drink bloody cow blood. Nobody notices. Yes, the various, like Andromeda and things where, or the rates in Stargate, going, just domesticate cows and eat them and everyone will leave you alone. Stop mugging people. People hate you if you drain their blood and their life force.
Yeah.
Given the fact I'm very badly anemic, I'm sitting here daydreaming because I've had such problems getting iron infusion. So I can't have iron tablets. I'm sitting here wishing and dreaming that there was some other way of having to constantly battle the NHS. Because I know when I get back home, I will need to go to A&E.
Yeah.
And I will need to get quite an emergency infusion, and you are just making me wish there were other ways I could go about this. I'm sure you've seen me not getting to walk very far.
So I'm seeing you down a dark alleyway with a...
It's sad when it gets to that point and you just like, oh, I wish.
Do you feel like you'll be able to 3D print red blood cells at some point?
Oh,
They are working on, they have been for years though, working on synthetic blood, but blood is complicated, as I think we've demonstrated, so I don't think that will be in our lifetimes. Don't know if you know different view or...
Well, factor 8, of course, is what exactly is factor 8?
I don't know.
Well, factor 8 was as part of the scandal of the early 1980s because there wasn't enough people giving blood. So we went to the United States,
right, yes,
and of course this is where AIDS was already here. But we then had people given blood who needed donations, and they then duly got AIDS.
Yeah.
And when it comes to AIDS, it was always more drug users that actually had it than actual gay people. But it is a kind of synthetic blood mixture. But I don't know enough about it. So.
And neither do I, but that is one point. Some people occasionally, when I ask them to be blood donors, say, oh, do I get paid for it? Some people have actually asked, do I have to pay in order to donate? We're like, no, you can do it for free. But some people say, do I...
You should have said yes.
Yes. But I mean, some people will say, do I get paid for it? But that was the problem in America. Because every time you give blood, there's a careful screening process to make sure that your blood is safe for you and for any donor, any recipient. But in America, they were just lying because they got paid for it, and so we're not going down that route.
Well, in all fairness, because one of my American friends does give blood. Apparently now they are no longer paid for blood, but they are paid for plasma.
Oh, okay. Well,
so whether or platelets. So whether that's something waiting to happen, I don't know.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
We have one person there yet?
Just on the back of Salanti's story about anemia, we actually both have the exact same taste in donuts.
So do you have the exact same blood type though? That's the question.
Yeah.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Oh,
So it would be super handy if we could just plug in directly, but I believe that's another thing that Hollywood has got a bit wrong.
Again, that's beyond me. So nice idea though.
Near dark, where they save the guy by doing a quick transfusion. I'm going, I hope they're compatible blood groups, because otherwise he might not be a vampire anymore, but you've still killed him.
It was just to say that the movie promo for the Swords in America, they did a big blood drive, and it was really, really popular because they got all really creepy posters and T-shirts just to go and give blood to go and watch the movie.
That's cool. The NHS Blood and Transplant has linked up with the producers of the company that produces Wakanda Forever to do a blood drive, but in order aimed at people of Afro-Caribbean heritage, because they're more likely to have rare blood subtypes that we need.
I'm trying to get Kevin and David to agree on how much time we've got.
Well, I think I will just wrap up. I will wrap up. So if you've got a question before we do that.
I've got a similar problem to what they were just saying, because I'm also slightly anemic. I also have problems with my iron in my blood as well.
Yeah.
And I work full time. Mainly I've just had an iron infusion, my third one in 5 years. You do feel all right up to about 6, 7, 8 weeks after, but it does trickle off after that.
I mean, and that's why we need transfusions all the time, because it's not, people sort of think it's for surgery, but mainly it's for giving people a better quality of life.
I work full time as well, so I'm quite active when I can be.
So thank you very much to Dr. Bob. I know we're out of time. Now, knowing that somatropan can cause green blood, I was going to suggest we do a practical, because I do have some that's standing around.